from NPR analyzing Dominion voting system sale to firm run by ex-Republican elections official. We had talked about this a little bit. We didn't get into it when the news broke because I don't think much of it. But liberals are framing this as though Republicans have purchased Dominion so they can rig the elections in 2026 and 28.
But that's impossible.
It is. It's not possible at all. Dominion couldn't possibly rig the elections, right?
That's what I've been told.
Yeah.
Now, do y'all believe Dominion has the capability to rig an election?
Well, I know for a fact that they can't because I was repeatedly told that they can't by legacy media.
This is a real question now. We're past the jokes, Seamus. You're a funny man.
I think I'm being sincere. I trust the mainstream. I don't know why you would assume that I was being cheeky. No, I actually do think it's telling that when someone says they trust legacy media, it's like, okay, be serious.
I don't.
But I mean, listen, I don't know how you could possibly make the argument that if you have an entire infrastructure set up for allowing people to vote digitally, that the people in control of that infrastructure are going to be totally incapable of ever changing any ballots. Maybe I just don't know enough about the technology, but it seems like a stretch to say that's not possible.
I have an idea for a poll for the audience. If you believe Dominion can manipulate elections, super chat us $10. I'm kidding. Do it anyway. I believe that Dominion voting systems, through their voting systems, one could rig an election. I'm not saying that Dominion as a company has done it or would do it, but clearly with such massive voting infrastructure, if someone found a means to remotely access these systems, of course you can. Liberals are now concerned that Republicans will do just that. I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, like what is the reality that a former Republican elections official bought Dominion so that they've routed the deep state, they've attacked their financial infrastructure, and now they've purchased Dominion so they'll never lose again. I can't say that I'm
to go to
mad
paper
about it.
ballots.
I want to make one quick point about this, though, because not knowing who this ex-Republican is, we saw a lot of backstabbers in the Republican Party, the legacy Republicans, the neocons say, Kamala Harris is actually the most qualified candidate and the best choice for this nation.
Ridiculous.
So when we hear that it's an ex-Republican, I actually don't know what that means.
The Lincoln Project Republican.
Yeah,
Is that what we're talking about, guys? Look, it's time to go to paper ballots. I think that the left can now agree with us on that the safest election will be one where you have to go in person and vote on a little piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said that I saw that some crazy leftist on TikTok was talking about this, and I saw the video, and that's my initial reaction as well. If they're concerned, then we should go to single day voting on paper. That's it. One day on paper. Florida knows how to do it.
No man
they end up. In Florida, they end up with the election results, with their results within an hour or so after the close of the polls. They did this because of the absolute S show that happened in the year 2000 with the whole hanging chads and stuff. They overhauled their whole system. The rest of the country has a blueprint that they have offered to give to them, to every other state. Every other state has a blueprint of what actually works, and other states have refused because they like the fact that it's a mess.
But gentlemen, to the question, how do you feel how would you feel were the scenario to be Republicans literally bought Dominion and will rig the election in Republicans' favor?
I'd want the Republicans in jail just like I'd want the Democrats in jail. I want anybody who's screwing with my election in jail. I want a fair and honest election, and I don't care how we get there.
So you would prefer Democrats to be in charge fairly than for Republicans to win by illicit means?
As long as I had the fair opportunity for we the people to rise up then, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, we're a nation governed by law and ideals, and I want to get back to truth. Tim, you said, just in prep for the show, you talked about your appreciation, your desire to get to truth. This is about truth. I don't believe if we get the truth out there that American people are going to in any way, shape, or form support the absolute insanity we have here.
I honestly... I'm not speaking to you, but I think to the generality, most people would prefer to win the election illicitly than lose to their ideological enemies fairly. And people might try to claim otherwise, but they typically only do that when they feel like they are actually winning. So in the United States, when we have a relatively homogenous culture with minor disagreements, like if you go back to the 90s, people are going to be like, no, let's have a fair election because the stakes were minimal. If Democrats won, taxes might go up a little bit in some areas, certain benefits would be received in blue states, and people got mad about it. Today, we are talking about if Democrats win, they will let another 20 million illegal immigrants into this country. They will completely destroy the fabric of American tradition, and they will likely jail Trump, his administration. They will hunt down people who supported Trump and put them in solitary confinement like they already did. They'll arrest opposition media and journalists. And so if you're asking me personally how I feel about the idea, I'll put it like this. My personal feeling is that if Democrats win, they will try to put me in prison. If Republicans win, I'm going to be okay. I'd rather not go to prison on false grounds and be tortured by political psychopaths and communist BS. So for the layman, for the average person, the question is, would you prefer people fairly... let's put it this way. Let's just ignore Dominion and all this argument, and I'll ask you this question. Would you be okay living in a country that voted in a communist dictatorship?
No.
Would you do anything to stop the communist dictatorship from taking over?
Well, I wouldn't lower myself to becoming a part of the communist dictatorship. And if I vote to implement a communist dictatorship on my side, I'm no better than the other side.
No, you're not bringing in a communist dictatorship. Like, was Franco bringing in a communist dictatorship?
Well, listen, if I'm voting to put Republicans in illicitly, and they give me the illusion of freedom, am I really free?
No one ever said that.
That's what I think we're looking at, though.
We're saying that there are individuals who believe in a constitutional republic of America, but know that the system created by Democrats over the past 10 years has weighed it in favor of a communist dictatorship that you will never escape. You have the opportunity to, by force, stop that from happening. Would you choose to allow the communist dictator to take over, or would you stand with the constitutional Republicanists to prevent it from happening?
I don't think that we're standing with the constitutional Republicanists. I don't think we're doing it. I don't think the premise of the question is correct.
I asked, would you stand with a constitutional Republicanist to stop by force a communist dictator?
By force, yes.
To stop, and so the force here is coercive.
So if the force is an outright revolution, I would stand for a revolution.
But again, the question is, you have the ability to use coercive force to prevent a communist dictator from taking over your country. Would you do it?
As long as we're honest about what we're doing.
Well, that's not coercive force.
Well, if we're practicing the same thing that the Democrats are doing, how are we any better?
So we don't sterilize children. Substantially less likely to abort them before they're born. We don't try to imprison our political opponents.
Do you trust?
We don't put people. I mean, the list. We don't create false felony charges. We don't falsely accuse people of rape. The list goes on of the things we do not do. And so again, the question that I'm bringing up is: would a group of people say, well, they outvoted us. I guess communists have taken over, and I'm going to die. Or would you be like, I will do anything to not die? And I don't think it's reasonable to agree that the average person would just be like, hey, look, the communists have taken over and they're coming to kill me. No, what happens is you get partisan violence in every single circumstance, in every facet of history.
Agreed.
So again, when throw it to the Spanish Civil War. Basically, the nationalists won an election and then did not stop the communists. And so what happened? Several years later, the communists took back political power and immediately began running roughshod over the country.
Killing priests and nuns and digging up dead nuns' bodies and putting them on display.
And that's when Franco, who was stationed in Morocco, was like, guys, if we let this keep happening, like, we are going to die. And so he sailed up back to Spain, rallied a bunch of guys. They found out what he was doing, attacked, boom, all of a sudden, civil war broke out. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a declaration. It was pockets forming throughout the country that sided with Franco's coalition.
Well, there's another important point with that entire situation, too, that a lot of people don't touch on, was that the communist Spanish government, or the attempted communist Spanish government, was essentially just a vassal state of the USSR. They sent something like 70% of Spain's gold reserves to the Russians.
Right. And one of the concerns of the nationalists was that the communists were actually in control. The Soviets were in control of the communist faction in Spain, and that they were about to become a vassal, as you're saying, of the Soviet of the Soviet Union.
And how many millions would have died if that had happened? How many more millions?
I'll just put it like this: there is a fine line. I think most people in this country are ignorant of moral philosophy. Mm-hmm. I think that. I've had so many conversations with conservatives who are like, we believe in the Constitution, ignoring the fact that they don't. They literally don't. Nobody believes in the Constitution. It's a lie. And I know there's going to be people who are going to say, I do, but I'm going to make the point again. Seamus, question. Do you think blasphemy should be illegal?
I think that the church says you can allow tolerations for horrible things if you would incur a greater evil by policing them. So right now in the United States, if you locked people up for blasphemy, that would be a disaster. You couldn't do that. But in a small Catholic country, of course, blasphemy shouldn't be legal.
Blasphemy was illegal when this country was founded.
Yeah, and porn was illegal too.
And so was swearing in public.
Yes.
And you had to profess faith in a Protestant God in most states in order to hold office. Maryland was the exception because they were Catholic, and Virginia because Jefferson was deist. You still had to profess a faith in God, however. This was in every constitution of the founding colonies, founding states. Today, it's a dramatically different country where even devout Seamus himself says we must tolerate a degree of blasphemy.
Well, no, that's actually not my argument. This is a Thomistic argument. Aquinas has said that there are certain evils that if you would incur greater evil by policing them, you don't police it. So this is not because I'm a modern American. This is like a medieval Catholic teaching.
It doesn't matter what you are. Your view of the Constitution is at odds with the Founding Fathers. That's my point.
Oh, yeah, you're right that my view of the Constitution might be at odds with the Founding Fathers. Yeah.
But
there could be ways in which that's
But
true.
Literally it is, right? The right to keep and bear arms, the federal level, did not pertain to state law. Mm-hmm. So when they said you have a right to keep and bear arms, they were saying this federal constitution bars the federal government from stopping it. States can ban guns all they want, and many of them did in various ways.
Well, then we had the 14th Amendment, which I would argue. Yeah. But listen, I'm gonna tell you, Tim. I respectfully, and I mean this with respect, because I'll be in jail next to you. Right? Mm-hmm. If this was to go down, I will be in jail right next to you, very quickly. I will tell you this. When I went through the fight with COVID, it damaged my family. I lost my money. I lost almost everything you can lose. I've put it out there. I've been willing to lose it. I'll lose it again before I'll sell out. The one thing that I've got, and the one thing that distinguishes me from some of the leftists that I've spent the last 5.5 years fighting nonstop, is that I will not sell out from my principles. Now, maybe they're at odds from the founding. Maybe they're not. I'm sure that they're imperfect.
But what does that mean?
But what it means is no. I will not support the Republicans doing the same thing that the Democrats are doing, because power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I have absolutely no reason to believe that if we gave the Republican Party, who is full of rhinos, full of sellouts, and we just talked about Donald Trump, trying to please everybody, I have no reason on this planet to believe that they would be any better if we gave them absolute power. So I want us to be the check.
And that's not my question. My question is moral philosophy. Would you use coercive force to defend your worldview from a communist authoritarian? Not, would you side with specific American political faction? I don't care about the Republicans. I'm saying, would you personally choose to use manipulative, coercive force to prevent a communist dictator from coming into power and murdering people and kidnapping people and gulagging people?
So long as I didn't have to become that, as long as I didn't have to empower myself or anyone else to become what I'm fighting, yes.
Right. So then, yeah, I mean, I don't understand.
Well, what I'm saying is listen, propaganda is propaganda. We use propaganda every day. I go in the media, I do my show, I use propaganda. Is that manipulative? Well, I guess.
So coercive force means there's physical force, overt, going up to someone, pointing a gun in their hand, saying you don't vote. I'm talking about, would you be party to a manipulation of an election to prevent communists from taking over, knowing that you and the people that you're working with will have a fair and genuine democratic institution moving forward?
No, because I don't think we need to. No is my answer, because I don't think it's necessary.
Right. So I disagree. And I think when you look throughout history, there's reasons why, say, Catalonia, for instance, got wiped out and crushed and barely existed as an anarcho state, and why anarchist societies have never existed, and why Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great, Napoleon were successful as they were, despite the fact Napoleon was like, I'm going to Russia in the winter for some reason.
Terrible idea.
It's because what we find, even in today's modern political context, is that everything we believe about the virtues of American society were only based upon the fact that we had a moral and virtuous society.
True.
Everybody basically agreed. Now that we have a large portion of the country that does not agree, they are beating the crap out of us, and we're just taking it.
Agreed.
And so the end result of that scenario will be the same as Catalonia. We will be beaten, gulagged, and they will exhume nuns' corpses and desecrate them.
You think, Tim, so you don't believe that if we leverage the infrastructure that we currently have under the law and everything else, do you think we're past the point of no return, and that really we're at a point where we really may have to do that? Because I don't think we are. I think that if we were to leverage the authority that we have under the existing Constitution, under the existing law, that we don't have to get to that point. And the question is interesting as an academic question, but from a practical standpoint, I think that we still have a good chance to win this if we're willing to fight for it.
Let's try this. Do you think that illegal immigrants vote?
Do I think they do? Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that they vote in such numbers that they impact our elections?
Absolutely.
How do we go into a Democrat jurisdiction and tell them that the laws they've enacted and their policies are now void?
Well, we should be doing that through the courts anyways.
Well, the courts are siding with them, and they're telling Trump he can't do things that he clearly can.
Oh, I agreed. So
So the courts, right, here's my point. Courts are saying we will protect the illicit activities.
Yes, they are.
So would your solution then be Trump? Okay, so they are doing it.
Yes.
The courts have defended this illicit conduct.
Yes.
They've barred people from watching elections.
Yes.
They've destroyed election data.
Yes.
They're likely going to do it again.
Yes.
What is our recourse?
Right now, we need to be arresting. We need to be impeaching judges. We need to not be arresting the guy on the street. We need to be arresting the people who are behind this. You and I can get on the internet, and in 5 minutes we can say, hey, look, it looks like money's going from here to here to here. This guy's funding the riots. This guy's funding this. This guy's funding that. The research is there. The data is there. We could take action. And we can impeach judges. We can we can do things. We're just not choosing to, and we're putting ourselves in a position where we're going to have to do what you're saying.
Let's keep going. So I just wanted to fact check myself here because I was pretty sure I had this right, and I am. We can't impeach federal judges. It can't be done.
Why is that?
You need 2/3 majority of the Senate in order to impeach a judge.
That's true.
So that's an impossibility. So. If the opinion of an individual, you or anyone else, is that judges are issuing unconstitutional orders, they are defending illicit voting practices, they are unconstitutionally altering the voting system, we can't impeach them because we don't have enough political authority in the Senate. If we do nothing, they will win elections illicitly, and then we'll be ruled over by evil. What's our course of action?
Listen, I agree with you. I don't think we're quite to the point that we need to do this. Now, I will tell you, we also can't, just for anybody asking, we also can't arrest the judges under the concept. We don't have the authority. You can't do that to a judge that's acting within the scope of their position, right?
I think there's a couple things you can do. One is buy Dominion voting systems and then be in control of the private voting mechanisms to make sure that the illicit voting doesn't happen.
I'm all in favor of making sure that it's not happening. I'm not in favor of doing the same thing they're doing. If Dominion did, in fact, manipulate the last election, and we need to buy it to make sure that doesn't happen in the next election, I'm all in favor of that. But there's a difference between buying it to make sure that there's no fraud in the next election or any future election, and using it to manipulate the election.
I'm curious what you think, Seamus.
So there's a really fascinating debate in Catholic ethics, and particularly Thomistic ethics. Well, it's not as debated amongst Thomists. They're mostly on one side. But whether lying is ever acceptable, even for a very good cause. So this would include things like undercover police work, where you know you're actually catching bad people, but it requires for you to tell a lie in order to do so, because Christ says he is the way and the truth and the life, and we as Christians believe that the truth is a person, and that person is Jesus Christ, and therefore any denial of the truth is a denial of Christ. And so there's intense theological debate if even lying to save a life is something that you're allowed to do.
My view is actually fairly simple. If you stand on pious ground and say, I will be but a fair arbiter of truth, they're going to be like, hey, I can club him over the head and take all his stuff.
They can kill my body, they can't kill my soul.
But that does mean dark days for this country, indeed. And if that's the world that you live in, so be it. I'm not saying your moral worldview is incorrect.
But what if we cheat otherwise?
Cheat otherwise, and what do you mean?
Okay, so what if we play dirty? We didn't set the rules of the street fight. They did. We can use lawfare just like they did. We can weaponize the DOJ just like they did, right? There's limits to what we can do, but they've set the rules. They've set the precedent, right? If it's okay to raid Melania's underwear drawer, why can't we raid Adam Schiff's, right?
We really don't want to. That's
I really don't want to. But here's the deal. I agree with you.
We'll let that one go. You keep it.
It's like,
I don't want to know what's in his Schiff
poor FBI agent who gets that duty. That sucks.
horrible PTSD.
There might be a joke about a Schiff-stained underwear. I mean, but no, listen, here's the deal. We don't have to go full-fledged Democrat to use very clearly the rules that they've set, the precedent they've set. We can be very aggressive in our law enforcement. We can do a lot of things. And, there's even an argument to be made. How about this one for you, Tim, right? So you can't go and arrest a judge who's acting within the scope of their duties. But what if you've got evidence that a judge is outright committing some sort of a fraudulent action in what they're doing? Why don't we try arresting
Show me the
one?
man and I'll show you the crime.
Absolutely.
We can arrest any judge we want.
Absolutely. So why don't we start leveraging that? Why don't we use the same weweaponized DOJ they used against us?
Okay, so
why don't we play that game?
Because Donald Trump doesn't have the courage to do that.
Well, let's ask the question. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's use Wisconsin. Actually, no, let's do Pennsylvania because of Texas v. Pennsylvania. Are you familiar with Texas?
Oh, yeah.
Massive suit. So Pennsylvania was sued because they altered the rules of their election outside of the frames of the federal Constitution. Yep. And the Supreme Court refused to hear it. So what happens if Trump then says, well, these judges have mortgage fraud. Let's arrest them all and take the piece off the board. And then we'll get people in who will do the right thing. Yep. What do you think the response from Democrats in Pennsylvania will be if Trump were to do that?
Well, I kind of don't care, right? Because you're talking about can we use Dominion to steal the election? And I'm saying, no, we shouldn't. I'm okay with them being mad at me. Well, I'm okay with a fight.
But I'm saying, we know that in Pennsylvania, it was the judiciary that altered their state election.
100%.
Texas argued that violated the federal Constitution because only the state legislature can do that, and they did not. So let's say Trump says, we need to remove a corrupt judiciary through legal use of force in the executive branch, arrests for legitimate criminal activity. What will Democrats do if Trump legitimately arrests the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania?
Well, they're going to have a stroke. They're going to do everything they can to activate every rioter, to activate everything that they can do on this. There's no question about that. And what's worse is we already know that they don't play by the rules. But at the end of the day, this part, I agree with you, right? So I agree with you 100%. We have to take strong and aggressive steps. My point is not that we don't have to take strong and aggressive steps. I'm frustrated as hell that we're not. My point, though, is that the steps that we take, there have to be limitations, right? I don't want to trade freedom for tyranny on either side. I don't trust the government. I don't trust anyone in our government. I will never trust them. After they put the masks on my kids, hell no, am I going to ever trust them again.
And so I think this is I don't mean this derisively. I used to think this way when I was about 20, that the use, I was very critical of all use of force. Today, I look at the ICE agents that are risking their lives in Chicago to deport criminal aliens, illegal immigrants, because I voted to do it.
Amen.
The reality here is that I, Tim Pool, went to a voting booth and said, I want this to be done. Yep. I then asked these men to stand in harm's way at my behest to do a job that I am not doing and honestly not willing to do. Yeah. I don't view that exercise of authority by law enforcement as illicit, nor do I view it as authoritarian. In fact, I look at these men as men I personally hired to do a job I wanted done. So the argument then is, we are not looking at a foreign body of power that we will put into power and then will be oppressed by. We are quite literally saying we want these men to be empowered and protected because they're acting out our will.
100%.
If Trump, as Trump carries on, he's actually doing more than any president has ever done, in my opinion, for the people who voted for him.
Agreed.
So I do not view the Republican victories as a threat to my life, as tyrannical or authoritarian. It's actually the will of the popular vote, which is as democratic as we've seen in a long time. When the Republicans win, we are seeing legitimate use of force as derived by the people. When the Democrats win, It's not. Now, to be fair, I don't think any regular voter who voted for Biden expected him to go and arrest Trump's lawyers. The only problem is they didn't care when he did.
They don't care.
They don't care. So we know what Democrats will do when they receive power from the people, and it is illicit. And we know that when Trump and his administration receives power from the people, it's actually fairly weak. I have no problem with them winning. Now, the ultimate issue, again, is, I say this quite a bit, I have changed my argument. I used to say if everyone had the moral worldview of Seamus Coughlin. Now I say if everyone had the moral worldview of Charlie Kirk, we would need no police. You would need no ballot security. This country would run like a well-oiled machine.
Amen.
And crime would be near zero. You'd need civil courts because sometimes people have misunderstandings. I thought the contract was going to mean this, and they get angry with each other. And of course, sometimes there's murder and there's going to be passion and things like this, but you really wouldn't need active police force in every jurisdiction because people wouldn't be aggressing against each other to any meaningful degree.
Yeah, the more laws you need, the worse shape your country's in.
Agreed. Yeah. And so the point we're at now is Democrats are not going to respect any use of force, be it legitimate or otherwise.
Yeah.
They are going to violently resist as they are right now.
The question of legitimacy isn't even on the table because whether or not the conservatives or Republicans are using legitimate power, the Democrats are going to say that it's illegitimate. This is something we talked about last night. This is not a question of who has the better argument. The left doesn't care what your argument is. The left is going to use whatever argument is functional at the time, and they're going to make that argument trying to get you to concede their point. They use your principles against you. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the freedom of speech. They don't care about anything that makes America America.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.